to the Catalyst Effect, a place where we talk about all types of games and random real life stuff. I'm here with my co-hosts Clouds for the Win and Crypto Hado. What's up, guys? How you doing today?
Yo, what is up, Missy? I'm feeling great, bro. I'm super excited to get this rolling. I know we've been talking about the Catalyst Effect for a while, so the fact that we're actually here recording the first episode is super exciting. I'm super stoked to get into the bunch of topics we have for today. And yeah, man, Hado, what's up, baby? How are you?
I'm running off of maybe like 2 or 3 hours of sleep, so I'm a little delirious. But we had our coffee here. Shout out to this mug. I look like a maxi. Holy shit! But anyways, yeah, I'm excited to talk about the topics we have today, and I have a lot to say. So
When
Let's
don't
go.
you?
Let's
No, I'm
go.
just kidding.
No, that's awesome, man. No, listen, guys. Like I said, I'm super stoked. You guys know me. I've been talking about the podcast for a while. I love podcasts, so the fact that we can do our own show and kind of put our own spin into it and talk about the gaming world and just how we see the space going and unfolding in the future, I think it's going to be a good time. You know, we're definitely going to have some hot topics and some saucy discussions. So I'm super excited to get to dive into you guys' mindset because I respect you both. And I think you guys have a really cool perspective about the industry. So it's going to be interesting, man. I'm super, super excited, like I said. So yeah, man, let's get the ball rolling. I think we should just talk about Catalyst for a little bit, right? Why are we calling this thing the Catalyst effect, right? What is the Catalyst skill? So Missy, like I said, man, I think you've always done a great job at explaining kind of like our history and our story. So go ahead, man. Let the people know what is Catalyst and kind of like what our vision is moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. For any listeners out there, my name is Mizzy. I'm one of the co-founders of Catalyst, and I do other stuff in the crypto gaming space, Web3 gaming space, whatever you want to call it. And Catalyst was one of the randomest things I've ever been a part of. Right? We all knew each other like in passing around the space. I wouldn't say that like any of us really hung out outside of like Damien and myself. And I remember seeing Cloud stream Magicraft, and I found that game interesting, and I was like, "Yo, like let me take a stab at this." So and then I saw a few other people in the comment section start talking about it as well. So I think we all got together like later that night or the day after, and you had invited us to a Discord that was like for another game. I'm not going to name it, but yeah, I know. Yeah, for another game, and we all ended up hanging out there for like I'd say about a week. Right, we were just playing Magicraft and having a good
Yeah.
time, and eventually we realized that we were kind of like imposing on that other Discord, so we made our own Discord, originally called the Magicraft Gang, and that was a terrible fucking name.
Yeah, really was.
And as time went on, I think we started off as like a MOBA server, Discord server. It wasn't even like we were trying to make like a super official guild or anything like that. Just a place for all of us to play around and have a good time. And I felt it was really needed in the space, right? Like I don't feel like we had a place that we felt that people could just pull up and play. So then from there, I remember we were on Cloud Stream. Well, not all of us were on Cloud Stream. Like I think Hado was streaming on at the same time as well. And we were all playing Magicraft, and we were like, "Yo, like we need to officially name this something that isn't Magicraft Gang." And I had always liked the name Catalyst. I thought it would make like a really cool, like dope name. So I had suggested it, and I remember like the one liner was because we're gonna be the catalyst for the space. And I kind of said it trolling at the time, but I truly think that it's something that we can do, right? This space is like in dire need of like hardcore real gamers. No offense to anyone that isn't currently in our space. It's just there's a certain type of gamer that's been missing, that I feel that we all kind of identify with, and we're slowly like cultivating that culture. I feel, and I think it's just a really raw and authentic place for people to come together, play games, have a good time, talk some shit, troll each other in a respectful manner, of course. And that's really what Catalyst is about. It's about culture. It's about bringing people together and having a great time. And that's really where our roots come from. To me, it's very reminiscent of like '90s skater culture. but for like the modern day gamer. It's like Supreme meets Thrasher magazine. Streaming today is like what every kid wants to do. Every kid wants to be in their room with the headset attached and just play that game and have a good time and maybe become famous. But even if they don't become famous, they have like clips that they can show their friends and stuff. So that's how skateboarding was in the 90s. So to me, it's like very linear, like parallel to that. And it's really cool seeing us kind of start this culture in our space because it doesn't exist. It didn't exist until we started doing it. And I really can't wait to see where we take it from here.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so like my experience, I remember just like the how we were so competitive with each other, like trying to be the best at the game, and like just the constant like banter between us. Like we just had this kind of synergy that uh alongside that we had like a work ethic to like bring the best out of each other, right? And I think that's kind of what we have done in this space. Is like we're bringing the best out of this space. We have been like a catalyst to have people come in that talk about traditional gaming experiences, and they've kind of like have been tired of like the traditional web3 experiences, which has been more focused on monetary gain and just trying to pump bags and stuff like that. We're more focused on like just kind of the games themselves and like how they play and how easy it is to interact with people in the games and how can we get people into the games. And we had a lot of game nights around games in the Web3 space, and kind of just like gelled as a unit. And we kind of expanded slowly. And, with over, I think it's been like 2 months since we've launched this thing, and like it's just kind of rapidly grown. So it is super random the way that it just came about. It's just a bunch of friends playing games, and now it's like everyone's seeing a bunch of friends playing games. It's like we forgot that basic concept in Web3. So we have been a catalyst already. So, I mean, beautifully put by Mizzy. I can kind of agree with everything he's saying here. It's kind of the same sentiment I've had. Like some of the best times I've had in Web3 has been with Catalyst. So I just really love that what we've done into the space, and like that's really what we're about. Is just the culture of gaming, bringing that culture that we see people that are diehard fans of whatever games they are in Web2. They're trying to bring that kind of like hybrid synergy to Web3, and that's really what I like about this place. Is like we've been able to do a lot in a short amount of time, and we have been kind of that catalyst to bring in a natural gaming experience into Web3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy that you said that, because although it's only been 2 months, it feels like a lot longer than that, right? Like we've
Right.
done so much in those 2 months, I feel like internally, as well as things that we've already presented to the rest of the members of the guild and stuff like that. But it definitely feels like it's been way longer than that. And to me, the coolest thing is that it's what you guys are saying, right? We've been able to kind of like produce this environment that kind of allows gamers just to be gamers and have a place to like actually just play the games and have a community to play with and actually like create content with and share ideas with and all this cool stuff, right? And it's almost like we're generating that bridge that everybody kind of keeps talking about, of bringing web 2 gamers and web 3 gamers together, and for fostering this environment that's going to be equivalent enjoyable to both groups, right? So like, cause like we see it in our group all the times, right? Where we have certain members in there that have no idea what Web3 is, right? They haven't really dived into that world yet, but they enjoy the games that we're putting out there, such as Magicraft, right? Like we found out that there's some members in Magicraft that don't really partake in the Web3 side of it, right? But we've also seen that with games like Grand Saga, right? When we did the Grand Saga thing, other members were interested in playing that game, and they didn't really know that it was a Web3 game per se, right? So we definitely have like both communities in our guild, and it's really cool to see that they're able to still put their, not their differences aside, but they're able to come into a place where they can just play games together and focus on the game itself and just the fact that they're having fun playing it and producing content behind it, rather than saying like, oh, but that's a web3 game and all you care about is like tokens and token yielding and all that stuff. So I think we've done a really good job at separating our guild from that mentality from Web3 that every guild is just there to like farm tokens or yield tokens or go into like pay to earn models, right? So I think our guild has done a really good job at just fostering that traditional guild mentality where it's just a gaming guild, it's a gaming group, like almost like a clan from back in the days, where people can come together as a community and play the same games together and just produce some really cool, entertaining content from it, you know?
And to add to your point, a lot of people in our guild or server or both are kind of international too. So it's showing the need for a place like this in Web3 where even in North America, Asia, Europe, doesn't matter where you are, people want to find a home where people can play games and focus on the games themselves out just and there's people that want to focus on the price and all that stuff and pumping bags or NFTs and stuff like that. And there's a place for that. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there is a place for people that want to experience that traditional gaming sense and that culture. And I think we've provided a home for them at Catalyst, and to show like that we have people from all those different regions. There's a need for it worldwide, even to this day. That there's like no culture for gaming. Well, there is now. It's called Catalyst. So
Yeah. Well, and to add to that point real quick, right? With that comes, I think, a shift of mentality from the developing standpoint as well, right? I think more developers and games are noticing that there's a need to shift the way of onboarding users into their games, right? So a lot of games have shifted from the Web3 onboarding, such as like needing a wallet to sign up or something like that, are shifting more to traditional ways of signing up, such as using an email or like using a platform like Steam or Epic, right? So with that, right, like comes the mentality of changing groups like guilds. They need to foster a community, right, like ours, where gamers can feel welcome, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand. So like a game that comes to mind for me, like they have done that, is Champions Ascensions, right? So Champions Ascension started with like a Web3 way of onboarding where you needed the NFT and you needed your wallet to be able to play the game, right, and sign up. Now it's just an email sign up, right? So they've done a really good job at making that shift to be able to onboard more users, I guess, more easy. So, I think we also have to look at that when we're talking about creating guilds in the space and stuff like that. We have to also shift our mentality of what does it really mean to be a guild.
Yeah, definitely. And to take it back to like the part where we were talking about the Web 2 side of things and being more friendly for like, the everyday gamer. I think in our group, I'm probably the most recent adopter of like Web3 gaming because I was still like, I didn't really start playing Web3 games until like February. And when I joined the space, I was like, yo, let me find some other gamers. Like that was really my mentality. I didn't look at it as let me make a little money. I was like, all right, I knew the value of, blockchain technology and Web3 stuff because I had been involved in other parts of the scene. But I had never like really gone into the Web3 gaming side of things as like a gamer. I had always like seen it from a distance. So something that I joined the space looking for actual gamers, and I honestly think that Catalyst kind of kept me in the space because I was getting to a point where I was like, everyone's really just here for business, and that's cool. Business is great, and I'm not saying that there's not a need for business. Like, there's a need for a business and everything, but like, what's the real intent here? Like, Catalyst started out of the desire to be gaming first, just playing games, having a good time. So it's like I feel like a lot of things existing in the space right now are just very business driven, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But for gaming, a lot of it tends to be an escape from like reality, right? So it can be very difficult for like the everyday gamer to want to come into a space like the current Web3 gaming scene and really give a shit because like they don't want to be hearing about like business opportunities all the time. And that might sound backwards for some people, but that's just how gamers are. Like it's not a logical way of thinking because gaming isn't really logical. um it's something where else in the space do you like start tweeting about a game and like everyone instantly starts hitting you up to like do business? It's like you play a regular game as a regular person, no one cares. Uh, like you might build a little following, you might do a little bit of something, and some people might view you, but it's not something where it's like instantly being turned into like a business thing. So for me, like I work a lot, and I don't even like calling it work because I just like actively do a lot of things and I enjoy everything that I do. So for me, like when we get together in our game nights, like I'm trying to get away from all that. Like yeah, Catalyst is getting to a point where a lot of people want to work with us, and that's fine. Like I love that, but my personal intention when I'm in the Discord server is just games. And I like the fact that I get to say that I played a part in something like that hadn't existed here before. And it's really really interesting to see like where we're going to take it from here. And I agree to your point that you were talking about with Champions Ascension. Like the onboarding process, even in just these last few months, have gotten so much easier for like playing the game. You don't feel like you need a PhD now to play like a Web3 game. Uh, where like because the first thing I do whenever I start playing a game is I send it to like my niece and my nephew because they're kids. So it's like they have the time to actually play games. And it wasn't until recently that I felt comfortable with sending them games because I'm like they don't have to do like a whole wallet thing. They can just sign up on email and they're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, and to add to your point, right? Well, that's all getting more easier, right? I think that that's a perfect transition for like the next sector that Catalyst would also want to focus on, right? Which is the educational side of things, right? And educating users on blockchain technology, on blockchain usage, right? How to get everything that you need to initially, like just the basics understanding of blockchain, right? Because while these games are getting easier to onboard people, they still do have the blockchain somewhere in the back end, right? So if a user decides to go deep enough into those games, they're going to encounter the Web3 side of things, right? And that's when the educational content needs to be there already for those users waiting for them, right? So that they have an easier way of navigating through their Web3 experience. Because that's what happened, at least to me personally, in the beginning, right? When I started Web3, like late 2020, early 2021, right? It was really hard to find educational content on Web3, right? That was good quality and that got to the points that I needed, right? Not some random stuff about a specific token or like how to make money with this type of like transaction or crypto, right? More like, okay, I have my MetaMask already set up. How do I link as simple as like, how do I link my ledger now into that wallet that was already created or something like that, right? Those type of content, the how-to contents, right, were impossible to find, at least for me, right? Like scavenging through Google or YouTube and all those libraries of videos, right? It was really hard to come up with creators that were making really good content. Maybe like a handful that are handpicked, right? That I started watching, and that's kind of like how I started educating myself. But I also know that not a lot of users have the patience or the attention span to go through that process of educating and researching, right? So we got to come up with this perfect like I guess middle ground, right? That conforms to all audiences, right? But that people are able to get their educational contents from somewhere specifically, maybe a community that they're a part of, right? So I think that's another big sector that we want to focus on as a guild, is that when you go into our Discord server, there's going to be specific channels for those educational workshops, I guess you can call them, where users can just get educated on certain things about blockchain technology and Web3, right? Because it is going to happen. And like you said, Missy, for your nephews, right? And nieces, they're going to get the Web2 experience, but eventually, if they get deep into the game, they may encounter something Web3 related. And it may be something that's more beneficial to their gaming experience itself, right? But they do need to know how to properly utilize it, right? So that's when educational content really comes in and shine, in my opinion.
And I think this adds to the name of the podcast in a way, the catalyst effect, the effect that we've had on the industry, lowering the barriers of entry. That's the first thing we've kind of had an effect on. Mizzy, you're right. I feel that too. Like it's been kind of easier to just kind of get in these games, and we've kind of like, I don't want to say we've demanded it, but we have kind of demanded a bit of change, and we've kind of been a voice of change, and we've kind of seen that change over time. That these games are kind of like making it a lot easier to get into the games. I have a big problem with games that kind of just live on Discord and don't really live out there in the interwebs, right? And we've kind of made them, come to us because we have a community of people that are hungry for games, hungry for content creation, and we've kind of made this catalyst effect go out into the entire Web3 gaming industry. And people are coming to us. They're wanting to try to figure out how can we get people to play these games. And my first bit of advice is not to live on Discord because you're kind of in an echo chamber and you're not really exiting that echo chamber. But yeah, I really do like what's been going on in the space that we've been like kind of pushing out there. And I think education is the next key step. At some point, people are going to want to figure out how do I earn, how do I use this NFT technology. I think the language is very important there. Using words like digital collectible instead of like NFT, since NFT's kind of been painted with a broad brush of like scams and all this stuff. So like, I think the language is very important on how we deliver that kind of alpha. And I think over time, we're going to see the narrative change. We have been kind of a catalyst to change that narrative. The more people that come into our Discord, the more people are going to spread the message of what Catalyst is bringing to the table. It's going to bring more value to the space in general, just because we're trying to make the space more simplified, kind of cut the language barrier out of the equation and get more people into the whole entire Web3 ecosystem in general.
Yeah, man, I agree 100% with you guys. I think when it comes also like when it comes to like game developers, right, and games in general, the reason we're seeing these changes happen too, right, quicker, is because of exactly that. When you create a community like ours, or when you get communities together, it's not the same as getting gaming developers having to go through scattered data that's everywhere and seeing how different people are feeling about it, versus just getting a whole community together and going to them and saying like, hey, we were trying to do a community night with 200 plus people ready to play the game, and about half of those number got uninterested because they couldn't figure out how to sign up because it asked them to connect some type of wallet or something like that, right? And now that game can visually see like a big group of people and users kind of like divide, I guess, right, and levels of interest, and they can make the right changes into their models, right? Like, oh, you know what, we need to make it more simple to sign up. Let's go into looking into getting into a platform like Steam or Epic or Elixir, right, or even Hyperplate. Like, there's so many platforms nowadays that there shouldn't be a need for like wallet connection for onboarding, right? It should just be as simple as email sign up. You don't need to purchase anything to get access to the game, and everything else that's like that, like digital collectibles, wallet connection, pay to earn models, all of that type of stuff needs to kind of fall in the back end of the game for users to kind of discover throughout the game, right? Like maybe start creating more like of a battle pass type of system, right, where at least players to kind of earn incentives by just playing the games, but maybe have a higher tier that they can unlock by connecting into the Web3 model, right, where you need to connect a wallet, because in this tier everything that you collect is a digital collectible, so you can actually sell it in the marketplace and blah 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 blah, right? So that's kind of like how it should be, like the discovery of Web3 within a game. It shouldn't be so much force upon the user. And I also think more games are starting to realize that they need to completely delete it from their marketing strategy, right? They can use names like NFTs or like, oh, like even pay to earn has taken a hit, right? Like even using the term pay to earn, not the model itself, but the term P2E. If you mention that, immediately people already get a bad reaction from it, right? Now, obviously, pay to earn is going to stay, and it's going to be here to stay because it's a model that it is sustainable if done correctly, right? But again, I feel like it's been done incorrectly in the terms of marketing and the way they've implemented economies within a game, right? So
Yeah, the one thing I do like about, like, I'll make my way back to the play to earn and then kind of start off with like the community side of things, and the educational side of things. I do feel like we've all done, and I don't, and then when I say we, I don't even mean like us as like a core group of founders. I mean just like the whole community has done such a good job at educating each other. It's like, how many people wouldn't have played certain games if they didn't have other people to ask questions? Just being able to ask each other questions. Like, I know there was a couple games that I was like, bro, I don't know how to figure this shit out, and I don't feel like spending an hour and a half trying to figure it out. And like 3 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to ask anybody really. Like maybe send a couple of DMs and hope people answer me. But now I'm just like, yo, like I just throw it in general chat, and like somebody has always answered me. So I feel like that is a lot of education within itself.
Or what's even worse is like you'll get DMs from the games themselves, and it's not really the game; it's just some dude with a .eth name, and you have no idea if they're associated with a project or not. And then you find out that they're just trying to get you to go to some link, right? So like another thing too is like security, like to not have people to give that alpha, to not have a conversation around your game that's built around a wallet. It's very risky to just have people like, oh, I got to reach out to the game, right? Or the game's reaching out to me. Wow, that's crazy. I've got 2,000 followers. They're reaching out to me and they want me to work with them, and they're not even on the team. Wait, but they said they're on the team. They're not even on the page. You know what I mean? There's just all a lot of confusion there. And so when you come into a space like this and you're brand new and you see all that kind of confusion, a place like Catalyst kind of alleviates that confusion because people are giving each other alpha. We're the ones educating people at the end of the day, right? And it's our members that are doing it as well. I mean, I've been educated by Maddox. I've been educated by Professor Pressure. There's been people out there that have been taking the time to understand a concept, bringing it to me, and then I understand through them, and then I understand when I do it as well. Versus like them, like a game reaching out to me that are supposedly part of the project when they're not, right? So there are people that we can trust and rely on. And that's what Catalyst has brought out here. Is it's like this just a raw authenticity. It's like this is what the game does and this is what the game doesn't do, right? We never had that
Yeah,
until Catalyst.
and just so much more organic interaction. Like when it comes to the learning side of things, also when it comes to like talking about these games, we've in Web3 gaming, there's been this thing where everyone has to like be perfect all the time on social media because they're trying to like, project a certain image or create certain relationships. And it's really interesting seeing how I kind of feel like that's starting to break down a little bit. Like I see a lot of people starting to be more like authentically themselves because like they get to practice that in Discord. Like when, for example, in our community when we play games together, you start seeing more of people's like actual personalities rather than whatever front they're putting on for their social media or for their content creation. And I think it's overall making everyone's content better because they're getting more practice with like actually being themselves. Having those conversations and realizing they can have like a negative opinion about something, and it doesn't mean that they dislike everything about the game, but like it's a valid point. Up until recently, it's been weird to have like a negative opinion about something in Web3 gaming because most people are like, "Oh, you're fudding." No, I actually think the other 80% of the game is pretty good. This 20% sucks. And that's like a valid criticism because that's what keeps it from being a great game. So it's one of those things that I do love the fact that it's not something we really had to talk to people about. It just naturally started happening where people are feeling more comfortable because they know they have support. Like there's somewhere to go. Before up until recently, I didn't feel like there was somewhere to go for that. So, for example, if you accidentally piss someone off in like the wrong team or the wrong game or whatever it may be, you might not have felt like you had a backing to be like, no, no, dude, it's cool. Like it is what it is. They're upset. They're justified in being upset, but you're also justified in having your opinion. And we're starting to build that community where people actually feel safe in voicing how they actually feel about certain things, and both positive and negative. It's not all just like on a criticism level. Like some people feel more comfortable in admitting that there are certain things that they really like and being accepted for that as well. And not, and some people might clown on them, but it's like all in a joke, like a jest kind of way, like it is what it is, right? um and that's probably my favorite thing about the guild, outside of like us playing games together, just seeing how it's just helped everyone really become like a more authentic version of themselves as a gamer and as a content creator, from
Yeah.
what I've seen so far.
No, man, I absolutely agree, right? And I love that as well, right? Like sometimes I'm just in the server and I'm just there to chill and converse with people, right, and like have conversations, and I'm not even gaming, right? So I think you guys are right. I think we've done like a really good job at creating a home for all types of communities and people, that can kind of express themselves in all levels of interest, right? For example, like what you were talking about, Messi, right? I do think people that are interested in providing feedback to games to make them better in the development process and all that type of stuff, right? Um, their opinions matter, right? As long as it's done with like a constructive criticism, and you're providing feedback with some type of solution, right? Where you identify, and we were talking about this the other day, right? Where you're identifying problems in these games or these projects that you're involved with, right? Don't just go to them and say, hey, like this part of the project sucks, this and that sucks, I don't like it, right? And then walk off, and then that's it, right? Go to them and say those things, but also come to them with some type of solution that they can implement to start solving those things, right? And I'm not saying you have to be a developer yourself or like some type of coder or anything like that, right? But at least some type of idea that puts them in the right path of how they can achieve a solution for that type of problem that you're noticing, right? And game developing teams are going to take that type of feedback a lot more serious, and it's going to motivate them to want to implement that. Because at the same time, as a creator, you got to understand that these people, these developing teams, are putting a lot of work to develop those games, right? Whether it's shit or not, to develop something that is functional to some type of level, right? And it can actually like move and everything, like, all those coding. I can't even get into it because I don't have the knowledge for it, right? But it's extremely difficult. So these people are putting a lot of work, whether the game is well funded or not, right? So if you just go to them and you shed on their idea, obviously they're not going to take you seriously enough to want to work with you, right? So you have to kind of like provide your feedback in a professional manner that is kind of well taken, but that also allows you to express yourself, how you really feel about that game, So I think that's kind of like the environment we're fostering for people that are interested in doing that type of work.
Yeah, and since we're kind of changing the approach of how people are getting into games, there's not this expectation that everything has to be done right now, because everyone that comes from crypto is very, we understand. Yeah, it's a very fast paced environment. We wait on a transaction. We're like, it should be instant. This is like internet money, right? Like, this is spooky internet money. It should be instant. But the games aren't like that. Games take years to develop. Sometimes they take almost a decade to actually be full fledged out, and it's a working product over time. And so when you have your game associated with an NFT token or some type of price that fluctuates, right? As soon as that price goes down, people are going to lose their minds because they put their hardworking money into this stuff, and now they're like expecting a product the next day, right? And they're expecting that product to update all the time. They're expecting that product to be fully functional, especially if you're spending over $100 on an NFT. Because in the traditional gaming world, if you spend over $100, you're a diehard fan of that game. Like, you spend $120 on a Call of Duty, pre-order or whatever, you're going to get all sorts of digital. I don't want to say digital collectibles because they don't use that there, but DLC, right? You're going to get all that stuff, and you're going to get exclusive items and stuff. In the Web3 gaming world, you spend $100 and the game might not even work, or the game might never come out, right? So like, it's a very different environment. And the reason why people kind of have that knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, like, I've been had, right? It's because they come from a traditional gaming world. Usually they have that mindset where it's like, okay, I buy something, it works. And in Web3, it's not like that. It's a kind of a startup culture. And so, to add to your point, to add that constructive criticism and feedback, Catalyst is very important here, because now people can come here and leave that kind of mentality of like, the NFT price has gone down, this game is trash, right? Well, now we can go here and say, well, maybe the game isn't trash, it's still being developed. I didn't understand that. I have a place where people have felt that experience as well, and now I can voice my opinion, just like others do here. And then, they can go from there. And that's really what has been really done well here. And I think that now that the kind of onboarding process is shifting a little bit, I think people are more hesitant to do that old approach of like buying an NFT and stuff. And they're like, how can I get in without losing like all my money? So because I mean these NFTs are down right now. So
Yeah, and that's actually a perfect transition into my next point with Catalyst, right? And I'll add more to your point, Hado, on different stages of where games lie, right? As far as like when they're closer more to like a developmental stage versus like a playable stage, right? But I think that's a perfect transition to talk a little bit more about our community nights at Catalyst, right? Because I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do a little bit different than most communities, right? And it's the fact that we're trying to host community nights with games, whether they're Web3 or Web2, right? Because, and that's another topic that we'll get into in a little bit, right? The importance of playing both styles of games, right? Whether it's Web2 or Web3, at this current stage of the gaming industry, right? Like we need to be playing both sides. We need to be playing both games, both type of communities, right? But to our community nights, we're trying to implement them with games that are completely open to anyone in the public, right? That are not gated in any ways, whether that be NFT gated or token gated or whatever the case may be, right? We're trying to do it with games that anybody can get access to, right? Whether it's free to play with a platform like Epic or Steam, or whether it's like a free download or something like that, right? But the whole point of having those community nights is to do it with games that have playability. So that means that they're not in a testing. Well, they're not fully developed, but they have enough of a game loop that you can continue to play it, right? So like games like Magicraft from before, right? That had that playability, but they were still in development. So we have games like Big Time, right, which is a big one in the Web3 world that has been around for a while. It's been being developed for a while, right? They consistently do updates to their ecosystem. So that's one that we're going to start doing on community nights for our community, right? And that's a way for our members to come together and be able to produce content around these games, right? And have a way to have users to do that content with, right? Because to add to your point from before, I don't think it's the same thing to create content by yourself than it is to create content with a group of people and other content creators, right? It becomes a lot easier to produce something entertaining when you have a group of people adding to it versus just kind of sitting there and beating yourself with your personal insecurities or something like that, right? Where it can be like, oh man, that didn't come out exactly how I wanted it to. Or man, that topic sounded so boring. I need to find something more entertaining. You get me? When you make collaborative content, when you make content with other content creators, that kind of comes in naturally. And that makes the content even more entertaining to the viewer because again, it's coming organically, right? So I think that's something that's really cool that we're trying to produce for our community nights.
Yeah. In addition to that, like it's better to be able to create content with other people. Games are usually also better with other people, period. And something that's very difficult to do in Web3 gaming is to, be able to create that atmosphere where you have other people to play games with, without making like a big spectacle out of it beforehand. And something I've also noticed is like the certain criticisms that I would have about a game when I play by myself in comparison to when I play a game with friends are completely different. Certain games do feel a lot better with more people, and like that is something that is valuable feedback to a team, right? Like maybe the solo player experience should be heightened a little bit, or vice versa. Some games might be really good solo player, and then you play it with other friends, and you start to see like certain things are unbalanced, certain things need to change, and it's just overall like having the multiple options of how you want to experience the game is so important.
Uh,
And uh, let me just finish this, and then you can
no, yeah, go
add
ahead,
in.
man.
And when it comes to like giving feedback, I also think that having a group of people that you can play these games with helps the feedback loop as well, because you might not be as negative about certain criticisms that you might have had, because like the other people around you kind of show you like the parts of the game that you do like, right? So I feel like when you do things by yourself, you're a little more critical in the sense that you're just sitting there in your own thoughts the whole time. So you're just like, oh, I didn't like that, I didn't like this, I didn't. And being critical is very important, but like you were saying earlier, Clouds, it's how you deliver it. Like, you know, I also think it's a part of like the internet culture that we have, where people just feel like they can kind of shit on someone whenever they want. So I feel like in gaming that's even heightened more, where it's like, let me go shit on this developer. Like, let me not, take into consideration the fact that this person has been working 90 hours a week probably for like the last 2 years. Like, forget all that. Fuck them. I'm just gonna shit all over everything they've done up to this point because there's no there's no consequence for doing that on the internet. Where in real life, if they were like at an event, I'm pretty sure they would be like, "Hey man, what's up?" Like they would have been completely different as to how they approached that human being. So it's like when you do give feedback, I haven't seen anyone in our group of people like ever really shit on someone, right? It's always like both positives and negatives. Like we've never played a game that we didn't have any criticism for because part of what we do is providing these games with real feedback. So we kind of have to have some criticism, but we always kind of deliver it in a certain way where it's like, hey man, like we appreciate everything you guys have done up to this point, and we'll start off with the good stuff, and then we'll kind of like swim our way into maybe the not so great stuff. But we're also, like you said, providing solutions. We don't just say, I absolutely hate in any industry when I hear somebody be like, oh, I didn't like that. Okay, well, why not? Well, for this reason. Okay, so what would you change about it? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
why the
Yeah,
fuck would
exactly.
you ever?
That's exactly right. That's most people
Yeah,
that provide criticism on something, they go in it without thinking of why they dislike it in the first place, right? Like when you ask somebody, "Well, why didn't you really like it?" "Oh, I don't really know. It's just not my I don't know. Something about it." You know? And it's like, "Okay, that doesn't really help me in any way," you know? Like that's what I'm saying. Like that's the mentality that we kind of need to shift in the gaming world if we really want to see like Web3 make important changes into these games that are coming out, you know?
yeah.
and
Because I
and
mean,
and
in sorry, go ahead, Hato.
I was just gonna say, so like, I think whenever you're doing the feedback loop in like a collective environment, I think your feedback could be like swayed by other people, but then you have other people's perspectives to consider, and you might reconsider like, oh, like I didn't think of it that way, you know. So like it opens your mind to like new possibilities as to why things are the way they are. I also do want to speak about the collaboration effort. So if you look at Twitch, some of the best metas on Twitch have been through collaborations. I remember there was a Rust meta where all the big streamers were collaborating and they were like joining up in factions, and it was just basically like it was just like playground vibes, like when you're a kid, right? But it's with a game, and people have their own ethics and morals and politics and stuff, and it's like all that kind of serious stuff to be like hashed out through Rust was just freaking amazing to watch. To see how all these people that from so many different cultures, backgrounds, and time zones were all collaborating together to play this one game, and that's what I think is like missing Web3. But like we're also bringing that to Web3 because like Grand Saga, for instance, we were doing this massive collaboration where everybody was playing it around the clock. We had the entire Discord server filled up to the brim. People were in groups playing with like each other, and they were like doing their own different missions and stuff. And like we were all in one giant Discord, and there were tons of conversations that were overlapping with each other. But everybody was about it, and it was just like that was the first time in Web3 that I saw personally a bunch of people come together, play a game from every region known possible, and having different conversations within one giant conversation loop, right?
It was insane.
Yeah, and the feedback that people were giving was like, "Oh, this game is too grindy," or some people like it's an MMO, like it's supposed to be grindy,
Yeah, exactly.
and so like that kind of perspective right there can be chimed in on people where they're like not really understanding the genre, like that's a staple of the genre, right? And that's the kind of like things that can only be possible when people are collaborating on a massive scale. So that feedback is very important to have like a collaborative effort for games like that. And then games that are like more of a party setting, like a Fall Guys kind of game, like people might have their own like perceptions when they see a trailer, right? But when you play it with friends, you could have a perspective of someone that's like, you know, not as serious as I am when it comes to competitive games. And it's just a lighthearted, casual kind of thing. And even that can be fun and competitive in its own way. So, like, I think the collaborations really can bring the worst out of people, but it can also bring the best out of people too. And getting the best of both worlds, the games need to hear that because if you just hear people talk about price all the time, you're not going to focus on getting the gameplay right to what the community wants. And community at the end of the day is going to push your product to the next level. They're either going to play your game or it's going to have a quick shelf life, and the community decides that.
The price of your skin or your token should not matter with the playability of the game, right? Because if your game is not fun and people are not playing the game, the price of your digital assets is not going to matter in the first place, right? Like CS:GO skins are not expensive because they're beautiful looking skins. It's expensive because of the culture that CS:GO has behind it and the amount of people that still play CS:GO and want to collect those skins from back in those days. You get me? So there's a difference, right? Like we have to generate the games first, the game experience first before we worry about value of assets. And sometimes in Web3 they try to do it backwards, right? They try to produce the value of that digital assets first and maintain it before they have a developed game or product or whatever it is, right? So it's impossible to deliver one without the other. So I think if you're a game developer or you're developing a game, your main focus should be about generating the best game possible, and that should be able to be a thing without NFTs or with NFTs in it, right? Like the game should be fun whether you have a skin that's worth $3,000 or not, right? It should be a playable game that people enjoy and want to keep playing it. So focus on that first and then produce the value behind your digital assets, right? Create that culture. Start making every time people go on Twitch, they see your game up on the timeline, right? Because everybody's playing it and making content around it. When you start creating that culture behind it, then that's when that value is going to start coming in, right? So I think it all goes down to the experience of the user, right? What you were saying about Grand Saga earlier, Hado, right? That is the game that you needed to have that first time user experience in there, right? You needed to be in there with a group of people that you were going to grind out those quests with, the raids. So for example, for me, I was in Mexico during that time, right, when the guild was playing it. So you guys were all immersive in a great group of people, like playing it together and like having this fun and grinding out the game. And I was in another country, couldn't play it, right? So when I came back, everybody had already reached a certain level. You get me? That they wanted to continue to play at. So everybody kind of like had their own group already playing thing. And for me, the first few, hour or so that I played the game, right? It wasn't the same. I didn't get the same experience because I didn't have that group of people to grind out the game with, right? I didn't have. I was just soloing the game for the first 13 levels, right? Because I needed to catch up, right? But also, what we've done is cater a group that now I had like friends in the community where I can be like, hey, can anybody help me grind out this level? Oh yeah, dude, I don't mind. I'll create a new account and let's go through these levels together or whatever. You get me? So we've almost been able to create a place where that first user experience can be regenerated, right? Because we have members that are willing to support one another and say, hey, yeah, like I don't mind creating a new account. I'll just create a new character. We'll play through these steps together. We'll get you up to where you need to be. Then I'll switch to my other account and I can help you with quests because I'm a little bit higher level and I can be the boss for you, and help you grind it and all that type of stuff, right? So we've created a community that can really support each other through these game experiences, right? Because I can tell you right now, if I would have to grind Grand Saga by myself up to level 20 or up to level 30 by myself, I wouldn't have played it that often, right? Because it's a game that requires a group of people playing different roles to be successful, right? So I would have gotten tired of getting beat by a I don't know, by a troll or something like that. You get me? So
Yeah, go into
like
that cave and get destroyed. The cave destroys
yeah, dude, it happened to
everybody.
me multiple times trying to play
Yeah.
with Kobe, where I was trying to follow him, and the thing kept targeting me, and I kept dying like 6 times. Versus, like, until Kobe literally was like, "You know what, man? Let me just kill everything, and I'll just let you run through."
Let me give
I'm
you a
like, "All
quick
right,
story.
bro, let's let's try to do that."
The developers actually gave us the items for that quest because we kept failing. But go ahead, Nizzy.
Yeah, I didn't know that actually. That's pretty funny. I didn't get the items. I had to figure that out. Damn. um, yeah, to add to that, Grand Saga was a crazy time for our guild. It was the first time I saw people that I didn't know in the space before start pulling up, and like I was seeing people in the Discord like playing, and I was like, "Who the fuck is that?" And I ended up making friends out of it, right? But it was weird, like, because I had been used to like our, in the first couple of weeks we established like this tight knit little like group of people, and we were growing. But Grand Saga was like growth on crack, right? It was just like crazy, where all we had, people coming in every day and different conversations being had, and all of a sudden I'm starting to see all these people in like Discord that I had never spoken to before. I didn't even know were in our space.
Well, I
And
also think it bridged together like a bunch of different communities, like a bunch of
yeah,
different other guilds in the space.
yeah, for sure. And and earlier on, like there was a lot of competition going on, and I didn't get to see the second half of it because I had to start going back to like taking care of certain things because I was neglecting too much of my work life. During the early stages of Grand Saga. But it was the first time we even saw people doing that in Web3, right? Like I know Addis was like not sleeping for days on end. Like Money Plane, I remember there was one Friday and he was like, "Bro, I'm not even going into work today. I'm calling out." Like to see that even happen was amazing, right? It was like, wow, like we're getting somewhere. So it was very like energizing for me to witness.
Yeah, I
Just
remember
kind of
seeing Andy's. Oh, sorry, I would say I remember seeing Andy Slaps hoping that they would end the play test sooner than later because he was tired of playing the game because he was that addicted. He could not put it down.
yeah. So it was really unique and really cool to experience that and seeing on a personal level with both new people that I had never met before and with people that I knew that I was didn't realize how big of gamers they were, right? It was like, damn, like you guys are really going for this. Like you guys aren't real, like you guys are Web3 gaming content creators and stuff, but like you're real gamers. Like you're not a fake gamer. I feel like Grand Saga kind of taught us who I don't want to say that people that didn't grind it weren't real gamers. Some people have like, real life stuff, or it might not be their genre. But it did really, for me personally, kind of show me who were like the real gamers and who was kind of a grifter. Um, there were certain people that were talking about how they were wanting to play it, and based on the complaints that I heard them making, I was like, you're not used to this. Then, if you're telling me you played MMOs in the past and you're having certain complaints and certain remarks, and it's not complaints that like a traditional MMO gamer would have. So it kind of taught me like you're a bit of a grifter, which was cool for me personally because it was like gaming will bring that out of people.
Well, I also think like a lot of people like to I guess use label for things in Web3, right? Like they live under a certain label, right? Whether they label themselves as like the wealthy person or like the gamer, right? Or whatever. And to me, when you're labeling yourself as a gamer, I mean, I don't know what else gamers do other than grind games. Like
Yeah,
I've never
exactly.
met a gamer that said, yo, my favorite game is this and that, but I only play that game on Tuesdays. You know, like no, dude. Like if I told you guys, hey, my favorite game is Call of Duty, right? And how many times have I told you guys, I play Call of Duty for 13 years straight without playing any other different game, right? That's me grinding out literally a title because of how much I love it, how much I was into it, how much I was trying to accomplish something with it, right? Like I've never met a gamer that says, nah, like I don't really like play games to grind them out. I only play them once and I do one campaign once a month and then that's it, like one quest once a month and then that's it. Like I play Skyrim and I couldn't put, when I played Skyrim for the first time, I cannot put Skyrim down. I think I completed over like 40 quests within the first 3 days or something like that, right? So like, and if you know Skyrim, it has over 300 quests. That's not even including the side quests, right? So like, it was a game that I wanted to continue to grind because it was so much fun, right? So yeah, like I think that's the whole point. Like, is to grind games, is to play them. So like we see in the space, and to your point, Missy, what ESU did is kind of show who's really here for gaming, right? Who wants to play these games that allowed for them to have this experiences that allows them to say, hey, I've been playing this every day, and every time I come on, there's something new to do. And you know what? There's this new event happening, this new raid that happened that I need to call out of work for because I'm gonna miss it and I need to play it, right? So I almost want to transition and ask you guys, what do you think? Because now that Grand Saga is taking a little break, right, and I know it's coming back, but while it's taking a little break, right, what do you guys think is going to be the next game in the space that's going to bring that experience, right, to gamers again? Because we've seen it with certain games, right? I would say with first person shooters, we've seen it with Dead Drop in the first, I would say like in Snapshot 5. We saw it more than Snapshot 6. But when Snapshot 5 dropped in the beginning, like the community got together and there was a big community playing it, right? I know one of the games that has a lot of anticipation behind it and people are really waiting for is Shrapnel, right? So And then you have like games like in the MMO scene, like games like Illuvium that have attracted a lot of people, right? Or games like Wildcard, and now we have games like Parallel in the TCG community, right? So I'm curious to see what you guys think. What game is going to have that effect with people again, right? But I see you holding Shrapnel, right?
This
That
is
what
the
it is?
old logo for Shrapnel.
Okay, so but let me ask you this, right? Because this kind of goes hand in hand with the development stages of game, right? For example, I've been Shrapnel is heavily gated to a certain point, right? Like there was a point where we needed to have that operator to be able to play it, right? And certain people have been holding that operator for months, right? And the game is still not even out to a point where we can try it, right? So and I know they're getting ready and they're close, but it's almost that point of like understanding the developing stages of games, right? Like Shrapnel is a game and it's a project that I'm heavily interested because of all the new um, technology that they're trying to add into their ecosystem, right? And everything that the ecosystem that they're trying to produce for content creators and creators in general, not just content creators, but gaming developers, content creators, visual artists and graphic designers, all of those people, right? They're creating programs for them, right, within the game. So to me, it holds heavy interest, and that's why I'm willing to hold their NFTs for as long as I need to be able to try that out, right? But I know there's not a lot of people that understand that and that will be willing to have that patience to hold something that's worth upwards of $100.
Well, so for Shrapnel, the reason why I think that is the most, I think it's the most highly anticipated game of Web three right now. The reason why I think it will be the next big thing is because I've been listening to them for over a year now, for like their Twitter Spaces, the AMAs, them dropping into random Twitter Spaces, dropping some alpha of what it is. But they also do drop every now and then some kind of dev diaries. They do some behind the scenes stuff. They have this kind of like traditional AAA studio approach to their game. I have played their game in person. It was a very early build, but from what I saw, it was a very full fledged, polished 3D looking game, right? Beautiful graphics, tons of immersive environments going on, sirens, explosions, fire everywhere. You know what I mean? And it was a very early build, so like I know the game is going to change, right? But not only that, they also have had like live action movies for lore. They've had comic books and stuff. So they've taken a lot of time and thought around this world that they're building. And the other thing that they have focused on is UGC. So they want to have some kind of user generated content economy based around their token, right? So they have really shifted from the NFT holder kind of thing to like delivering what the game is going to be and how it's going to kind of like have all these different elements of Web3 added into it. They also have mentioned like a Web2 version where it's like you can play the game exactly like you would play with Shrapnel, but there's no NFTs front facing that you would see, right? So that's going to come out there as well. And the thing is, like, traditionally, games take a long time to develop. So they're going that traditional approach, the dev diaries and all that stuff, all the alpha they constantly drop. That it's giving me reassurance on that. The reason why I think it's going to be the next biggest thing in Web3 is because you're going to have kind of the same thing where you have UEFN on Fortnite. You're going to have all these people try and race to develop the best worlds in Shrapnel. And that's going to bring in this user experience that people will kind of take what they will from it. Kind of like Roblox, they've compared themselves to Roblox as well, where you can understand Roblox is a vast amount of experiences, right? And some of them are good, some of them are bad, right? But at the end of the day, it's the community that's going to uplift that game. And I think Shrapnel has got a great grasp on community and what it takes to deliver a good product for community. I mean, they have people from HBO, they have people from Xbox game studios and stuff like that. So with all that being said, I know it hasn't like been playable yet, but when it does become playable to the holders, they're going to get the first dibs on it. And then the light version comes out alongside the game. I do think this is going to be the hottest game because it's going to have that community that's been built around it. and the kind of gameplay experiences you're going to have is going to vary to all the people that are creating stuff. Besides just Shrapnel themselves, all the users as well, the community. And they even have people come from Warframe who has who made like their own little community stuff in Warframe. They're getting excited and they're salivating with what's going on in Shrapnel for like the creation tools and stuff like that. So
No, and that's why I wanted to bring up Shrapnel, right? Because like I said, like it has different components to it, and that's why I'm glad you brought it up, Hado, because one of the things that I wasn't aware of, right, was the fact that they were going to bring a version of it that is free to the public, right? That everybody can experience. And I think that's the part that was missing from their model, right? Because being gated to an NFT, right? Like we have like the operators where we understand that we want to be more involved into the UGC aspect of things, right? That's what we want to hold the NFT for. But for when you have that gated version, it kind of like becomes a barrier to produce that experience that we were talking about, right? It kind of becomes harder to have that experience of like, wow, there's so many people playing this game, and we kind of saw that effect happen with Dead Drop, right? When they stopped selling the tower keys, which was a cheaper way to get into the project, right? Like essentially it's just to try it out, but you don't really have any developing voting rights, so you couldn't really add to the feedback for developing like the rest of the holders, but you could still test the game out, right? When they stopped doing that, now it's kind of like just the population that's in there, right? Like the population that's left wanting to play that game in the current stages that it's on, right? And that's why you see only servers hosting like 10-player servers or like 9-player servers, and then it doesn't become as fun, right? So that happens when you gate a game to that level, right? But the fact that Shrapnel is thinking to kind of incorporate both makes me feel a lot better, because then you have the chance to generate a lot more users playing the game, which gives you a lot more chances for better feedback as well, because you'll get to test out the game with a massive scale of users in it, right? Um, and on the other side, you have the NFT version of it that again is more for the people that understand what is trying to be developed and implemented with the UGC type of thing, right? When I first got into Shrapnel, I think back in the days when I wrote a thread on them, their white papers still were mentioning about the fact that you could generate maps, and they were going to have a rental system for those maps where people could rent out this map that they created for other users that wanted to maybe host events or like tournaments or even just matches on these maps that people were creating, right? And there was going to be in-game marketing through customizations of banners and all these things that you could implement into the development side of things, right? Which was where my interest came in for that project, right? That's why I got involved with it. That's why I bought the operator, because I wanted to get into that side, right? But I think it's very important for games to have kind of like a division between the two and allow like the two audiences to have a say. Like, hey, I just want to try out the game and be able to play it. Oh, here's a version for you. Hey, I want to be more involved and be more involved with UGC. Oh, here's a version for you.
yeah, and one more thing I'll add to the light version. That's what they called it on a Twitter space one time. The light version will also be on console, so they want to bring it to console as well. I don't know if how they're going to integrate it with Web3, but maybe it's something like to do with the website or something. But they
Yeah,
do want to
most
bring it to
likely.
console as well. So they do want to get this game to market everywhere because they are a console
Yeah.
experienced dev team. Some of
And
them.
I
So
have seen that more being done with more projects in the space as well, specifically more with the FPS scene, right? Like I think shooter games are more directed towards console as well, because a lot of people enjoy playing it on controller, and it's also better for discoverability, right? If you have yourself on Xbox, in the Xbox stores, in the PlayStation store, that brings more users into your game, right? So I agree with that. I think it's one of those things where one of the things that I can respect about Shrapnel is the fact that it's a team that has just gone on their developing stages, and they've literally been in development in the back of the scene. They do a very good job at keeping their socials active, but it's literally been just them working and doing in-house testing. It hasn't been more like, here's a beta, please give us, like, I haven't really seen like many betas or like snapshots or anything like that open to the testers, like the holders or anything like that. So I can respect that from a team, because at least they're putting in the work and taking the time it needs to produce the game that they want to produce.
So I'm gonna take it back because there's something I've been wanting to say for a while, but I kind of let you guys do your thing for a minute. So like to take it back to a comment that you had said a while ago, Clouds, you had mentioned teams like to focus on like NFT prices and token prices, and I promise this is going to find its way back into the current conversation we're having. It's something where you have to talk to the developers and to find out who actually is building a game because they want to build a game and who's building a game for financial gain. Because Web3 gaming is a place where we do get the access to actually speak to some of these developers or like team members, right? More so than Web2. So there's been a few developers that I've spoken to, and it's like I'll ask them like, how does your favorite food like play its way into your game, or like I'll ask a really random off the wall question like that. Why? Because it's like a real developer will have an answer for that because it's that personal. It's that personal to them. Like what random hobby did you have as a kid that made its way into your game, right? Like because they build that from their heart. Like the best game developers, in my opinion, build it be out of a passion, not necessarily out of like a technicality. So like someone that I ask that I didn't even have to ask that question, like Sinjin, the guy that's developing My Angry Yakuza Girlfriend. He has a whole story as to how his upbringing going to arcades and stuff like influenced his development of that game. So it's a matter of like his game is very personal to him. So for me, like it might not necessarily on the surface be my favorite genre, but like it is its own unique genre type of game. But I respect the shit out of him as a developer because it's like I know that this is really personal to you, and there's a lot of yourself in this game. So it's when I talk to these developers, I try to find out how personal it is to them, um, because that's how you're gonna know if like the game is really being built for the right reasons, and if they're like a true gamer at heart. Like the best developers will start talking about like their time playing video games as a kid and the friends that they played it with and what they were wearing when they were playing it and what they were drinking, eating when they were playing it and what music they were listening to. Like they paint you a story that's like a movie scene. The developers that I lack that have all like lack of confidence in can't answer those questions, right? They'll somehow start talking to me about like the utility of their game or like the financial implications that it might have for the end user. Like, bro, that's great, but I want to know how the fuck your favorite soda made it into your game. Like,
Yeah.
depending the kind of game that it is, like that's an honest question, or like how your favorite color plays a role in like the landscape of certain maps. Um, because that's how like they're actually built. One, that's how they're not paying Fiverr devs. Uh, two, that's how
True.
that
True. True.
they're actually building a game that they want to put their name on it, that they're going to be proud of at the end of the day, because it's so personal. And to me, that's the kind of developer that needs to be in Web3 right now because it's a bleak place to be in, right? It's like we all know mass adoption isn't coming tomorrow, so you kind of have to grind out the trenches. And the only developers that are going to grind out the trenches are the ones that are incredibly well funded, or in most cases, like I would say most of the games in our space are like indie games. They have to be those indie developers that are incredibly passionate behind what they're doing and are willing to see it through. So like obviously to me, I agree with you and Hado, where Shrapnel is kind of like the obvious choice to me. I'm not nearly as hype on Dead Drop as I am on Shrapnel. But the game I will add to that mix is My Angry Yakuza Girlfriend, by Sinjin. I think he has his heart in the right place as a developer. I'm bullish on him, and I'm bullish on like the overall. I don't want to say bullish because we're trying to be gamer friendly. So I'm excited for what he's building and what his team over there is building because I think they're building it for the right reasons. So I think that there's a lot of passion and a lot of heart in what they're doing that makes me very excited. And obviously like Shrapnel is definitely something I'm very excited about because we have like we've all spoken about it, and we've all Hado's like Shrapnel pilled us. But I think that
Got a water bottle
my
around here somewhere.
yeah, exactly. I think that Meiji by Sinjin has the chance to becoming like that that like almost like that cult classic in Web3 gaming. That like everyone would get together and play after Shrapnel, almost like that party game that everyone like has fun and like shit talks each other over a couple of drinks kind of thing. That's where I see it.
Speaking of party game, I do want to mention Smash Bros. How that came about. The dude that made Smash Bros, Sakurai, he used to play Street Fighter, or I don't know if it was Street Fighter, but a bunch of arcade games. And he was so sad to see that people couldn't play a game with all the technical inputs and stuff like that. And so that's why he made Smash in the first place. So that passion you're talking about, it does come from literally anywhere. And that's where you see the game being incorporated, where they're like Sakurai's voice is one of the characters, where he makes like it's the fat penguin, like he makes a sound or whatever, and that's like his representation of the character. And it's like all these things that you're saying just blew my mind just now, because it's very true. When you look at like developers' choices for why they put things in games, the people that are very passionate about the stuff, there's a reason behind that. And the people in Web3 that are building games, that are true gamers, they're not going to have any trouble explaining why they put this in the game, right? Instead of just saying, "Oh, I just copied and pasted from Call of Duty," right? No, I put this in the game because this happened on this day, and I was wearing this color T-shirt, and my wife said this. Those kind of things like that. Those are the games that bring the most to the space. And I even though Meiji isn't like personally my cup of tea, I see the passion behind it, and I echo what you're saying. I think that games that are developed in that way, that these people are proud to talk about what they're putting out there, and not just kind of like sitting in front of the camera and like reading off of a script. Like like you should be able to talk about your game for days without any kind of script in front of you. And when people don't do that, the real gamers are going to see that, and they're not going to buy your product in Web3. You guys got to put in more like passion behind your product.
Yeah, 100%. And like I have that perspective because I worked in design, and it's like design is such a personal thing. Like when you're working on a fashion collection or art or whatever it may be, you have to pull from within yourself. You can't, otherwise you're just like a really crappy copycat brand, right? So it's like it's you have to like to be a good designer, you have to look at your childhood first. Like that's what they like good designers will teach you, right? Like I learned from a lot of the designers that I'm not gonna like name drop them, but I learned a lot from like really up like high tier designers. And one of the first things they tell you is like think of your childhood first, and like think about like the stuff you used to wear. Why did you wear it? Or, like how did it make you feel? And work your way back to yourself, because you have to find yourself in order to be a good designer. You have to know who you are. You have to like really know yourself in order to be a good designer. And when I first got into design, I wasn't necessarily like there yet. I didn't know myself to like the fullest extent, because you get influenced as you go through life. So you're like, yeah, like I think I like this thing, but then you realize, do I, or did I just kind of learn to like it over time? So I really had to find myself in order to like become a decent designer. And so that's why like I brought that same mentality to the games. Like who's going to design the best game? The guy that pulls from himself, like, or herself, from or themselves, whatever they are. Like they have to pull from a very personal place in order to build something that they're going to like be so proud of, that even if it fails, they'll still kind of smile about it. And that's what I look for when I talk to teams and developers. And if they can't do that, I don't care how nice it might look or how nice they might be. I'm personally just permanently like turned off.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you both brought up like one like copy and pasting, right? Like copycatting each other and stuff like that. And also you brought up like new experiences, right? Like game creating new experiences for users. Like so what do you guys think of like games that are coming into Web3 that are doing more of like the copy and pasting type of approach, like the cloning, right, as they call it into the space now. And I don't want to say maybe not use copycatters, I guess. I don't want to use that word, but like maybe like that have gotten heavy inspiration from, right? I think that's a better way to put it. Like I think of a game that has been making a lot of noise right now in the space is Vice City, right? And when I look at that game, when I first saw it, it was a game that to me got heavy inspiration from games like Fall Guys or games like Rocket League, right? Like that type of games. So I'm curious to see what you guys think of games that are like doing that type of approach.
Oh boy.
Like, do you think there's a way for them to still make the experience their own and I guess implement the right type of whether it's like technology or whether it's incentives, but it's basically implement something that makes the gaming experience one of their own, and it's not so much replicated from another game.
It's hard to do that kind of game when your whole entire idea for the game comes from another game and you just want to throw it in Web3. So, like for Byte City, for example, played it. It's fun. It's good. But I've already played it before, so it's not new. It's not unique. Do they have different kind of characters, different environments, different kind of skins? Sure, but what's to stop the original product from getting those kind of skins or making their own version of those skins? I mean, at the end of the
Well,
day,
that's yeah. I guess that's if I may like challenge you a little bit on that, right? Like, for example, Vice City, I know they integrated like if you minted the Bruce Lee skin, right? Then you had like a personalized like class or something like that where you're in a dojo with Bruce Lee like training or something like that. So that could be like a cool incentive to implement in their game, right? To provide them more of a personal experience. Maybe like any Bruce Lee's fans that are out there that want to have that type of experience in the game, that's something that they could be like drawn to, right? But I do see your point of what you're saying, like what's stopping the user from like having that experience in the traditional game, right? Like in Fallout and Fall Guys, for example, right? Like what's the like why would a user want to stop playing that game, right? Fall Guys to want to go play Vice City?
yeah, the answer I have for you, the benefits of the Web3 technology. Maybe it's DeFi, maybe it's token rewards, maybe it's skins that you can trade. Those are the things that where it can differ. The problem is the game doesn't really have an identity because its identity is based off of another IP. And I think people can either accept that and just run with it and do all the NFT trading and stuff and get all the token rewards and stuff and play the progression system that's there, or they can say this is just a reskin. Why would I want to play this? Like Fall Guys has been around longer. I'm going to play that instead. Another example I'd like to bring up is Rec League, where they are taking a previous game that they worked on and they're kind of throwing it into Web3. But at least with them, it's a different universe. It's a very different looking game, but the combat and mechanisms is very similar, right? So it really comes down to how innovative are these games? How are they marketing these games? And that is some of the issue I take with marketing in general, like saying that you're the next evolution of fighting games when you don't have any inputs doesn't make any sense to me, right? And for Byte City, they're kind of marketing it with like Bruce Lee, and it's like a huge partnership and collaboration, and that's all fine and dandy. But if you don't do anything new to the space, like for instance, Farlight is kind of taking all elements of battle royale games and throwing them in together at once, and that's very unique because like the characters remind me of Fortnite in a way, but the experience is PUBG meets Fortnite meets Apex Legends. And so like there's so many different things that they're combining and they're doing it in their own way. And to me, that is evolving Battle Royale. I mean, they even market it as Battle Royale 2.0 on their Twitter account. So I think what it comes down to is like how are you changing the game to make it different and not just taking an idea and just kind of like reskinning the idea. That's really what I would focus on.
Yeah. To add to this conversation, I'm going to talk about three games. I'm going to talk about Rec League. I'm going to talk about Grand Saga, and I'm also going to talk about Byte City. So, I think we all got invited as idols for Grand Saga. Like we all got to do the cool little influencer thing, and that was great.
Not me.
Oh, sorry, Hado. Well, you should have been.
You didn't get you didn't get your idol thing?
Grand
No,
Saga.
I
don't be-
was I was Professor Pressure's fan, and I had his face
Oh,
on my
wow.
thing the whole time.
Which, by
So
the way,
Grand Saga,
Missy,
don't be fading
if
my
you
boy
haven't done
Hado.
it, yeah, for real. If you haven't done so, by the way, Missy, they gave us like a free mount for being
For real?
idols. Yeah, so
Oh,
we gotta
cool.
go to the idol page and claim that.
Oh, dope. So I actually saved a lot of my fans for my niece and her friends. I didn't publicize it. I didn't tell a lot of people because I wanted like these kids play what's oh my god I can't the MMORPG Genshin Impact. There we go. They play Genshin Impact every single day. Diehard Genshin Impact kids. They play Genshin and they play Roblox pretty much religiously. Um, and I wanted their opinion because, like, right now, most people would say that with the anime style MMO, like, Genshin is definitely the top dog. So I wanted their opinion. And my niece's friends told me a line that kind of fucked me up a little bit, but it was true. They were like, is this. I had them try out the game. They all tried it out for about 2 to 3 hours. And they were like, it has potential, but it only has potential for a Web3 game. They were like, and I told them like this is in beta, this is an alpha beta kind of thing. So I managed their expectations, and I told them expect it to suck because I hadn't even tried the game yet when I started giving them the keys and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that they told me is like this seems like an MMORPG for people that just want to play an MMO in Web3 and are too stubborn to play one outside of it. They're like, take out like the NFTs, take out the values that you guys like to preach about when it comes to like blockchain tech. And why would you pick this over Genshin? And I basically said I don't like playing gotchas. I think gotchas suck. And they're like, okay, but like mechanically, like compare the two. And like they made some valid points, right? Like maybe making a game that is too close to home when it comes to a Web2 game is very difficult to market outside of a certain community of people because you start having those comparisons. So I could have argued them on certain points. Like there's certain things in like the Genshin Impact mechanics that I think suck that I don't like, right? Like their lack of PvP system. I think that's just incredibly lazy from a development perspective. Like the fact that Mihoyo is going on all PvE type of gameplay pisses me off. Like there should be a PvP style of real true gameplay in a game like Genshin Impact with PvP. So I made that case. Like that was something gameplay wise that I liked better about Grand Saga than I did Genshin. However, overall, when you start having games that aesthetically look very similar to other games and have similar gameplay loops, or it can even be considered direct, copies of those games, it becomes very difficult to try to introduce new audiences to it. And that's why I had those kids test out the game because they're all like 16, 17, 18, early 20s type of demographic. So it's not like they're like little kids that don't know what they're talking about. Like these kids have been playing games for like 15 years now. So I really wanted that perspective, and it was a unique perspective to have. Like I was able to push back a little bit, but it was a difficult, like I really had to pull into my bag to like make certain arguments. And in the case of Bite City, I'm super like not optimistic about that project simply because if you're going to clone a game, tell me your intentions for the future on a massive scale. Like, what are you going to do later on down the line to change the game? And you can't even find information about their devs like that. Like Jin Kieran made a post on Twitter where he was like trying to find out more information on their team, what they've built in the past, what they've been doing. And it brought a lot of I had never even tried the game, but like now I definitely wouldn't, to be honest, because it's just like, why am I gonna it's basically a Fall Guy clone. Like he even in the video proved that there was bots all over and that the team was claiming that there was no bots and that everyone was real players, and they were bragging about all these daily active users. And Jane Kieran started standing in front of people inside of the city, and he's like, "Then why is this person just running into me? Like they would have gone around." So Jane Kieran made a very good point as to why that game is sus as fuck. Like I know other people in Catalyst have played it. A lot of people may enjoy it, and that's great. And I think that in a short term, there's a place for like games that are direct clones because there's a lot of people that just want to play good games in Web3, even if it is feeling like a direct clone. Like we just want something that has blockchain tech in it to have fun with our friends. So I think like in a 2 to 5 year span, like cloned games will get away with it. But once the bigger games start to come in, it's like, why the fuck would I play your game over the real thing, right? Like, what if Fall Guys decides to become a Web3 game? Then what? Like, no one's gonna play Byte City in its current form. So it's one of those things that if you're gonna clone a game, have a plan to aggressively grow outside of that. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think when it comes to cloning, I don't think there's any right way to do it, right? I think it's more about drawing inspiration from it, right? Like for example, when it comes to extraction shooters, right? We all played like games like The Division in Web 2, right? Where it was an extraction shooter. That's all you did in the game was go into like the hot areas, you extract items. There's always a potential that your squad could betray you and take the loot from you, right? It had the same aspect as a game like Dead Drop, for example, but when you play the two side by sides, they're completely different games, right? One is focused more on like a vertical extraction, so you're always going up, and the Division feels more like an open world type of thing, right? So like while they're both extraction type of games, they're completely different when it comes to like their mechanics or like the goals of the games or like the experience that you're gonna have in the game, right? So I think when it comes to cloning, it's more so like, hey, like yeah, we drew heavy inspiration for such and such game, but we're putting our own spin and our own approach to it. Kind of like BattleBit, right? BattleBit has basically the same mechanics and the same concept as Battlefield, right? But they've done it in a completely new design. It's very Roblox like, right? The maps feel completely different. The mechanics of things feel completely different because they've done their own spin into the movement and the integrations of the game, right? So I think when it comes to that type of stuff, it's not about just, hey, I'm going to produce the exact same IP. It's more like, hey, that IP was a heavy inspiration to our game because it could be as simple as like, that was a game that we played as kids, and we loved this so much. And we wanted to incorporate certain mechanics from it into our game. You get me? Because again, it goes back to that passion that you guys were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah, it's and when it comes to copying something, like it's okay to take inspiration. It's called like Virgil Abloh's famous for the 3% rule. Like you take something, you copy it, and you tweak it just a little bit so that it's like its own thing. I think that when it comes to like saving money and budget, I get it. Like it's easier to clone something than it is to build an original concept as far as like hourly developer pay and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, I get why somebody would take heavy inspiration, but like where do we draw the line? Like where is the game exactly the same? And like for example, Rec League, at least if they cloned a game, it was their own game. Um, at least they were willing to clone their own game. Do I think that is incredibly lazy? Yes. Um, do I think the game looks crappy? Personally, yeah. I haven't tried it, so I can't say it is crappy or it isn't crappy. But I mean, from what I saw, like when I play a fighting game, and I'm not as hardcore as like Hado, but I played Tekken religiously as a kid. I played Soul Calibur. I was like the kid that played the alternative fighting games. Like I didn't play Street Fighter. I played it, but it wasn't like my choice of fighting game. Like I didn't play Mortal Kombat all the time. Like the games I played were like Budokai 2, Budokai 3 from Dragon Ball Z. I played Tekken a lot. I played a lot of Soul Calibur. I played like all the alternative fighting games. So it was like I still played like probably, if I were to add up all the time, like a year's worth of fighting games in my entire life. Like just me sitting in front of a console for a year straight playing fighting games. And nothing about Rec League made me feel any type of adrenaline. Like, oh shit, like I'm gonna go in there and fuck that guy up. Like it looks like a TCG game with like fighting fucking animation. Like that's not what I want to play.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. um, so for like a traditional player that plays fighting games, didn't do it for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like somehow the space has felt very scattered when it comes to like what people want to achieve when it comes to producing like a game, you know? So I've been really trying hard personally to like really scavenge and find like a good amount of like selective games that are doing it really well and really grind out those games in Web3, you know? But it has become a little bit difficult because it's become so saturated, right? With different like betas and different things of like the same things. So I think it has felt a little bit scattered. And then you have products that are being developed by solid brands and solid developing teams, right, that have experience and stuff, but they somehow feel so in such early stages that it gives you like it gives you a bad gaming experience, right? So like you can really go into it with like, I guess, your full expectations. Because I did see like a testing video from Crypto Stash, right, playing Rec League, and he was having like a match or whatever. He was about to win the match, and then there was like a major bug that happened or something where it didn't recognize his whole like combo attack, and that right there like kind of like makes the game like already like, oh man, like that kind of sucks, you know? Like why is that happening in the first place? You know, this dude like
Yeah.
and then literally he gets overtaken by the other guy's combo and almost loses the match. You get me? So it was almost like games that are coming out from a brand that's so reputable, you get me, that is so recognizable in the gaming space, like shouldn't have those type of little bugs, you know, in
Especially
my
for
opinion.
asking for like $100 for one package of minting and $300 for another one in ape token. I agree. Like it needs to be way more polished than that. It's just no excuse for that, and that's why I think these games shouldn't be minting in the first place. They should just be a free game, and all the minting should be in battle passes or whatever exclusive thing you want to do for the game. That should be the minting part.
That's a perfect, actually that's a perfect transition to my next point, right? Like why do game developers do this thing where they're asking users to pay for this mints, right, this paid products, to get access to like a game that is in such early stages, right? And I think a brand that has done kind of like a good job at producing products for their audience, I guess, is Yuga Labs, you know, where they create different like I want to say like mini games almost, right? Where they're specifically catered to their ecosystem, right? Their holders, their holders that have been in their ecosystem for years, right? They're specifically catering to this audience, and they're able to keep them entertained and engaged, and provide them with incentives within these mini games that they're producing, right? While they're building in the back scene their bigger product, right? Like their bigger, like whether it's the metaverse that they have with other Ds, or is the game that they're producing for other Ds, right? So like they have something that they're building that everybody knows they're building in the background that they've been taking their time with, but somehow they figure out a formula to produce like little games in betweens or mini game products that keep their audience and holders happy and incentivized, right? Like games like Dookie Dash, for example, where it had like the whole community playing it, but not everybody could play it, right? Some people were paying like crazy amount of monies to get the access pass to play Dookie Dash, right? And some people were renting out their passes, right? So, like, I think companies like that have figured out a model to say, yeah, we have holders that have spent a lot of money in our digital assets, right? And we got to figure out ways to bring them that value back, right? And they figure out a method of doing that through something like gamifying the experience, right?
Yeah, but I think they're in a position that is kind of unique to them because they, like you said, they've had people that have held that for years, and if a new project is trying to get people to hold stuff for years, um, and they approach it like a Yuga Labs, they're doing it wrong in my opinion because they haven't built anything yet, and so they're having people take on risk that they're going to build anything at all. And so if they're gonna like come out and say this is the network and we have all these crazy stuff going on, just buy this NFT that fluctuates in price, starting at 10.99, right? But if that 10.99 goes up to 10.099.99, meaning $1,000, right? Then there's a certain amount of people that can get into that and find that affordable. So there has to be kind of a happy medium of both, in my opinion, where it's like there's a level of access that is like the VIP exclusive top tier status, and then the Joe Schmo status where it's like, well, I can get in the foot in the door, but I'm not getting all these benefits for all the holders are getting. So there has to be kind of a happy medium, and I think Yuga Labs understands that. So at some point, they're going to have to kind of lower that barrier of entry. But for right now, I'm happy that the holders are happy because if you don't have the holders being happy, that product is going to get floored like really bad. So
Um, so when it comes to Yuga, I feel like they, like you said, Hado, they're one in a billion. Like no one else is ever gonna have that type of like because they became a cultural phenomenon with with Bored Ape Yacht Club and the Mutant Apes and all that, and then that led to them starting the games, and they were able to get tremendous amounts of funding, with ApeCoin and just everything. Like everything went perfectly for them to be able to be this experimental. And I do like your solution for it with like, the Joe Schmo level and then like the more exclusive level. I do think that a lot of the reasons that these teams outside of Yuga sell these NFTs prior to anything being playable is simple. It's very simple. It's funding. They need money to pay staff. They need money to pay, because one thing I've learned from being in this space is basically, everyone is like third party contractor. Like it's very difficult to see like a team of people that came together. For example, like us with Catalyst, we're not building a game, but we're a team of people that came together with a common vision. We wanted to change the space. Um, a lot of the times it's like with some of these teams, it's like one or two people that had that vision and they have to find a way to get money to bring more people in. Um, so, and they had to basically like hire a third party dev team or whatever it may be. So they might use the NFTs they might not do it in like a malicious way. They just might use it as a way to kind of start creating their dream. I don't think that's the way to go about it. I don't think that they meant it with like bad intentions, but I think we need to look at different solutions for that. And what I would argue is maybe build your game and like UEFN is a huge thing, right? I'm very very excited about what it's going to do for content creators and games. Why? Because you can build the concept of your game for very very cheap, like maybe 1/100th of the price would normally be. Like I've heard the rate for some of these UEFN maps are like 15-20 grand on like the higher end. So it's like maybe create some sort of battle pass for your game that gives people access to the Fortnite version of your game while you build the real game. Where if they want to experience what your game would be like, they can play it in Fortnite. Yeah, is it your assets? No, but like maybe make it so that you make a battle pass for your Web3 game, but part of that battle pass is you send them the code to your Fortnite map, and they can experience at least what the gameplay would be like, and base their decision off of that.
No, you actually bring up a great point, Missy, because I actually don't know why more projects on Web3 don't use that type of development, right? Because we've seen it with even developing teams in Web2, right? Like we see like organizations like 100 Thieves who are creating a game and they just shifted their models to use UFN, right? Like the Fortnite creator, to build exactly what you're saying, a shorter version of their actual main game that people can use right now, and it's going to take them 2 months to fully develop versus 3 years, right? So they're able to produce a finalized product in 3 months while still working on the actual like main game that's going to be their mainstream game, and take the time needed to develop that correctly by inputting the feedback they get from their game that they're implementing through Fortnite, right? And we see other creators like Clarish and Ninja and who's the other one? I think Tim the Tapman, right? That got all together to create a game with Nick Merce as well, right? They're doing it the same way, right? They're doing it through Fortnite, and I think that's a way to like kind of shorten your trajectory of development, right, for your game. So I don't know exactly why more teams in Web3 haven't utilized that model. And I'm not sure if it's because they can implement certain Web3 aspects of it, right? Like part of the technology into it. But at the same time, we've already seen models are like completely separated, right? Where you can have that for the Web 2 and then have like a separated website for the Web 3 or something like that, or like a separated platform like Elixir, for example, that allows you to have Web 3 integrations, right? So I don't know exactly why more developing teams are not utilizing that tool to expedite their developing stage.
If I were building a game today, I would find a way to get the 10 to 50, 20 grand if I had to hire externally, and build the map. And then I would launch a battle pass through NFTs or digital collectibles, whatever you want to call them, and be like, this battle pass gives you access to the earliest pre-alpha version of our game that currently sits in Fortnite. Then I would use that, basically, like, I would work with the community at that point to get real feedback and make tweaks within that map first. So that way I could present to like a VC fund the concept that my community and I have built up to this point, and then use that to get funding. Because I know some teams haven't been able to get funding because VCs don't believe in their concept.
Yeah. And there's so many ways to produce funding without having to mint a product, right?
Exactly.
For example, exactly what you're talking about with the battle pass, right? Like, gamers just care about having cool shit inside the games, right? Like, they want to be able to utilize the shit that they get in game, right? So if you have a battle pass for sale, right, and within that battle pass, if you buy it for, like, let's say $9.99, right, which is usually the price for most battle passes, like $9.99 a month or $9.99, whatever the amount, right? So you buy that battle pass, and then within that battle pass you can unlock certain in-game items, including maybe like micro amounts of like a token that would then lead you to use that token to like purchase something more useful in game, right? Such as a skin or like an NFT skin or something on down the line. But through that battle pass you can unlock other skins that are not NFTs, they're just regular skin for the games, for example, right? And you keep the players incentivized. They're going to want to purchase that battle pass. You get me? I did it through a game like Farlight, right? Like, Farlight has a battle pass system. It doesn't give me an NFT. It doesn't give me anything that I can trade for actual money, but it gives me incentives within the games that I personally want. And it gives me incentives that I can use for other aspects, such as like buying cases, right, with diamonds and stuff like that. So I found enough value within that battle pass to want to spend the money that I spent to purchase it. You get me? So by doing that, you're generating fund for your game to then develop even further, right?
Exactly.
So
And
there's really no need for games to like really mint any NFTs as far as like a funding method, you know?
exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, fund when I say funding, I mean like with venture capitalists and VCs and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, um something that they could easily do with the battle pass. Let's say, they say, hey, we're selling this NFT battle pass that gives you access to the Fortnite version of our game while we get more funding and actually build the real game behind the scenes. Fortnite allows you to make like custom emotes and stuff like that. So you can even reward those battle pass holders with custom emotes in Fortnite right now. So it's like entertain people enough while they're waiting for you to cook, because like these games take time to cook. Dota, for example, is a game I've learned a lot about being a part of Paladins and working with the rest of the team over there. Everyone there really loves this game called Dota, and Dota was built as a Warcraft 3 mod. It wasn't even its original game concept. So it's like the it works. It's been done for decades. Like, stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Build your game mode. If you want to attract a Web3 crowd, create a battle pass that gives people access to your Fortnite map or your Roblox map or whatever it may be, and get the live feedback now.
I think Counter-Strike was also a mod of Half-Life. if I'm
Yes,
not
it was.
I
mistaken.
mean, a bunch of games, right? Wasn't Gary's mod basically PUBG's? Like there's like a bunch of games that have done this model in the past, right? And that's the thing that I think a lot of Web3 projects miss, is that a lot of Web2 projects have already implementing this type of methods for development. And if you guys want to produce something quickly and do it effectively, right, then do that. Because once you start adding the process of like, hey, you need to mint this thing that's going to cost you 100 or upwards of hundreds of dollars, right, upwards of thousands of dollars, right, um to get access to play it, right? Now you have to have this narrative of like, oh, but that thing that you bought has a utility, it has a value behind it, you get me? And it really, like, in most cases it doesn't, right? It doesn't really do any of that stuff. So that's where I think, like, when you implement this type of model of like, oh, mint this NFT to get access to a beta test, I don't think there's any need for that, man. In what world, in the gaming world, do any gamers pay for like $100 for a demo? You know, it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that
insane.
doesn't happen.
They used to give us demo
So
discs for free, man. What the heck?
exactly. I mean, the most I've seen maybe like back in the day for like an alpha or like a beta was like 14.99 or something like that, where you would pay for like early access. But even then, like in most cases, it was completely free. You know?
And the thing is, in Web3, we're so insensitive to like everyday prices that most like Web3 gamers would be cool to pay $10 to get access to like a Fortnite map, maybe a couple of custom emotes, and the promise of, you know, one or two free NFT skins later on down the road once the actual game's been developed. Like it doesn't take much to satisfy like a Web3 gamer because like we're so used to having to deal with bullshit, you know.
Any gamer, man, because any
Yeah.
gamer is used to those prices. Like I said, if you talk to gamers in like terms that they understand, right? Like if I went up to you and told you, "Hey, you have a chance to purchase this battle pass, right? And it's gonna cost you point 0.05 ETH, right? And you're gonna get all this cool shit with it. Are you interested?" Most gamers are gonna be like, no, because I have no fucking clue what 0.5 ETH is, right? Versus if I went to you and say, "Hey, I have a battle pass that's gonna cost you $3.99, right, to purchase, and then you get all of this cool shit that you can do in game, and then on top of that, you get all this other cool shit that you're gonna be able to use when the real game comes out." Yeah, I mean that's the language that they're understanding. So they're like, "Yeah, I don't mind paying $3.99 for that. That sounds cool. Let me try that out." You get me?
And if they even do like the battle pass outside of Fortnite, for example, they can even add like an affiliate code to it and have your community market so they get paid out of it while they're waiting. Like, and then now you have like this entire user base that's waiting for you to launch something, but they're actively playing and giving you feedback as you're building it. So I personally think that's the future of building games right now. And I understand why certain projects in the space haven't done it yet because like this is fairly new, like a new way of thinking for people. With like the Fortnite, like UEFN in particular, right? But like going forward, if I start seeing too many games continuously just come in and try to do the same thing, I'm gonna be like, bro, just go build it in Fortnite and talk to me. Like,
Yeah.
like why am I gonna wait 3 fucking years and hold an NFT? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that's true. Well, moving forward, right? Like talking about just like the cultural effect, I guess, that certain games have in the industry. I know that's a big focus for us at Catalyst, right? Like, and I guess this could be a good closing statement or like a closing topic for this episode, right? Where do you guys think? Where do you guys see Catalyst, right, being like the most I guess making the most impact from a cultural aspect, right, when it comes to the gaming industry? Because I know we talk about that internally a lot, right? Like the cultural shock or the cultural impact that we want to have within the gaming industry. So, what do you guys think moving forward? We're doing the right thing or the wrong things on when it comes to like that cultural impact.
Well, I just see the overall vision of Catalyst being making an effect. I did it again. Making an effect in the industry where instead of this approach that we've had to focus on tokenomics or ponzonomics or whatever you want to call it, and focus on like income. Instead of doing that, I think they're going to focus on, or I think we're going to make the people focus on like really like the way they market games, the way they build games, the way they present games, and how to speak gamer language, right? Because there is no avoiding the Web3 side of like learning how to use a wallet. That's going to have to be some kind of uh, hurdle that we're going to like overcome as an industry. But I think that Catalyst, what its role is here, is to kind of be this hybrid gateway, if you will, from this Web 2 world where you don't have any value for things that you grind for to a world where you can earn value for the things you grind for. And also to add to that, like that value that you earn is not locked down to that game specifically. It's locked down to the end user and that end user could then take that value and trade it amongst the peers, but also the game company as well. Like a kind of like a inner working economy between gamers, developers, VCs, publishers, content creators, etc. That's how I see Catalyst playing a big role. Is like we're gonna kind of change the script, so to speak, of how it's been run so far. Because as time goes on, as we grow, our influence is going to grow, and if we're demanding a barrier to entry to be lowered and quite frankly removed like it is in web 2, but still have that monetary incentive in the back burner, but not so much the back burner, because I don't want to dismiss it entirely, right? We're all here to earn money, right? But at the same in the same light, we're also here to take away good experiences from those games. So I see the overall vision of Catalyst is pretty much going to reshape the way people think of the term NFT or digital asset, tradable, collectible, whatever. I see it as us taking that narrative and kind of flipping it, and it's like we still want that there, but it has to be game center focus, and it needs to be good experiences. So that's pretty much my overall vision for Catalyst.
Nice, man. Awesome, awesome.
Where do I see Catalyst? So I see us as the biggest gaming community in the world. I don't see us as the biggest game, aspiring to be getting there. I don't see us as just the biggest gaming community in Web3. I literally do see Catalyst as a top like three type of gaming community, whether you want to call it us a guild, whether you want to call us an org. And I have a very like well thought out reason as to why. Obviously, we have a long way to go, but I see us as the biggest probably gaming community that will exist over the next like 10 years. Why? Because there's going to be a moment where everyone starts to FOMO into Web3, right? And um, we're this core group of like people that are coming together to play these Web3 games. However, we understand the value of still playing Web2 games. So we're building an audience there, and we're starting to get more Discord members in guild members and just people in our overall community from Web2. So what's going to happen is we're building a strong audience on both sides of the spectrum. Like everyone in the Web3 gaming like bubble pretty much knows us outside of maybe like the Axie Infinity community in Southeast Asia. And that's until we decide to start, going to like that community, whether, not necessarily Axie, but they have other games that Sky Mavis is developing and stuff like that we could get into. So in my eyes, all that's really left for us to conquer in Web3 is like that. And then it's a full frontal assault on Web2, right? Because we have 20 core guild members already. The five of us, that's 25 people. So it's like up until this point, Web3 gamers have taken a very like Ronin solo Lone Ranger kind of approach with their content. And that's why they haven't necessarily like blown up, in my opinion, right? They haven't necessarily blown up on a Web2 scale, aside from maybe Bryson. You could say Bryson's pretty popular in Web2. I don't want to take any credit away from that man. He's leading the way for the rest of us. And outside of Bryson, though, no one else is really doing it, in my opinion. And the one thing that we have is we all understand that we need to work together. Like we don't have a choice. And luckily, we all get along with each other. And luckily, the guild members all seem to get along with one another, and everyone appreciates one another. But we all understand that we're here to change the world. We're not here to just play games. We're here to play games in a way that we feel will make the world a better place. And as the rest of the world starts to adopt that mentality, we, in my opinion, are going to be the biggest name there. So, like when the FaZe clans of the world and everybody else starts to kind of rush into Web3, we're already the FaZe clan of Web3. So you guys are kind of noobs in comparison to us. Like you're going to have problems with the everyday technology side of things where you have to get educated and figure out how to communicate that with your audience. We already know how to do that. And we're putting ourselves in a position where if you're going to want to come into Web3 as a Web2 gamer, content creator, whatever it may be, like we're someone that you're going to want to meet. In my opinion, why? Because we have a community that understands how this stuff works. We've been through the trenches of this thing. So I in my mind, we're already top like three. That is incredibly like optimistic and overly ambitious, but that's how I view us. Like I don't view us as a small Web3 gaming guild. I view us as people that are so far into the future that we're already top three. It's just a matter of getting like the numbers to support it. And I think that we're well on our way because of how we want to run what we're doing, and how we understand like how the internet works and content creation and stuff like that. Like right now, we're just setting down the foundation. I spent the entire weekend reading about flywheel effects, and flywheel effects is basically like when you push together a flywheel, it's really hard in the beginning, but then once it gets going, it's impossible to stop. So right now we're like pushing this flywheel where we're putting all the pieces in place to be able to get it to the point that it's spinning on its own, and then it's like an unstoppable force. So I view Catalyst as the top three gaming organization, community, guild, whatever you want to call it, in the world. And I think that it'll happen organically over time. And I think that we're going to make a name for ourselves in gaming, period, not just Web3. That is my personal aspirations for it, and it's just to me, it's a no brainer.
No, man, I absolutely agree with you guys, right? And I think it's amazing, just to get everyone's perspective, like from the creator team, and like just like kind of see where our visions align, you know. And I agree with you guys, right? I think to me, like one of the reasons we're gonna be successful in everything we set out to be is because we're working day in and day out on this thing, right? I mean, I think even our community can attest for us that we're active every single day. We're in our community interacting with each other every single day. I mean, I know as far as like us, the founders, we're like literally meeting every single day, and we're taking calls every single day, and we're trying to figure out how to implement new things into like community like ours, right? Like guilds or organizations, to bring more value into our members and just like the gaming industry in general. So I do think I agree with you, Messi. You know, while it's being optimistic and we're still early, um, I think we all have a clear vision of where we want to see Catalyst, and that's a huge driving force, right? When you have a group of people that are focused on the same goal, it's a lot, you get there a lot quicker, right? Versus having to like get everybody to come together and have the same type of mentality, have the same type of vision, be on the same alignment as far as like what steps we're taking. Those are all things that we already have in place, and that's why we've been able to grow so organically, right? Because we're able to, like, I mean, how many times have we have a meeting and then we come up to a conclusion and we're like, oh yeah, this is what we need, and within the time that we're done explaining it, that thing is already taken care of, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, that's already done, let's move on, you know. And that's the type of mentality that groups like ours really need, right, to be able to be effective and take certain decision making, um like come to fruition, right? Like there's times where groups like ours, when you have a big group of like people that make decisions within a core group, if they're not aligned in their goals, one decision can take months, right? And that's where you really start struggling. With our group, it feels more like, hey, like we're all on the same page here. Let's talk out this type of thing we're trying to implement. Let's share our ideas, let's share our opinions, but by the time we're done having this discussion, there's going to be a decision made, you know. And that's something that I've been enjoying a lot with our group, and I think it's something that I'm really excited to continue to see um how it unfolds moving forward. So yeah, man, I'm super excited to see what we can do out of Catalyst and how we can make an impact in the space, and also be known at one of those founding members in the Web3 space, right? Like one of the groups that, hey, Catalyst was there from the very beginning, you know, helping certain games come to the space, helping raise communities and helping raise daily active users in different games. You know, I think those are all cool things that we get to be a part of because of how early we are into this specific ecosystem.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
And by the
All
way,
right.
to clarify, we're not even 2 months in yet. We're 2 months on the 16th.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, it's literally been, like I said, man, Web3 sometimes feels like time is flying by,
Yeah.
and a lot of people forget like the lifespan of what like a month is. You know, a month is not a long
yeah.
time to implement things. And even our members, most of our members, every time we have an AMA or something, they're like, wait, you guys have already done this much already? Like, whoa, like we weren't expecting any of this, right? And I think that really shows how serious we are about what we're doing with Catalyst and the type of effect we wanted to have, right? Which hence the name for the podcast, right? Like we're looking to have that positive impact into the Web3 space and just the gaming industry in general. But yeah, man, I'm super excited. Also, I think this is a perfect stopping point for our first episode. So I think this is the perfect like transition into leaving this discussions for episode 2, because I think we're gonna have a lot of interesting topics to discuss and put our perspective into it. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. This has been the Catalyst Effect. Like always, we'll be your hosts, Klaus, Hado, and Missy. And we'll catch you guys on next Friday. Peace.
Peace
Peace.
out.